Hello, me again. What I thought I would speak to you about today is anxiety, and I would like to offer up the suggestion that anxiety, just like depression, is a habit that we have, and it's a habit that we fall into. And the reason we fall into it is because it's something that we do and we feel comfortable with it. And lots of behaviours, all behaviours in fact, have positive intentions behind them. We don't do anything for the wrong reason. Everything we do is for the right reason. And we don't become anxious because we want to, we just kind of fall into it. And if you imagine you're going on a pathway, and it's a pathway that you've travelled many times before. It could be through a forest. The more you travel that path, the more comfortable that path becomes. It has no grass on it. The undergrowth becomes sparse. That path becomes more comfortable. There's no brambles. It's easy to get to. And it kind of almost becomes the default setting, and we just go down that path because we always do and we always have. So another way of looking at it is that when we try and do something different, we go down a different path. Now, again, using the metaphor of that forest, the forest may well be in another area, not a trodden path. You know, we might have to walk through the thicket, the growth, the undergrowth, the trees, the mud, the grass. We could get spelks, we could get stung by nettles. It becomes much more uncomfortable because it's not natural to us. But if every day we decided to do that new pathway, then eventually that pathway would now become more comfortable. The grass, the brambles would move, you would end up getting a bit of a pathway, and actually that would become the more preferred option. And when it came to the old pathway, that would have the opportunity to overgrow, and because it was no longer in use, the brambles would reappear. And now if you imagine the brain, and we know now through all of the science in neuroplasticity, we can change our brain, which is why anxiety and depression are a habit, and we can change our ways of thinking. So what I would like to suggest is that when we are on a pathway of, be it anxiety or depression or many other kind of negative states, you know, we are going around on that journey, and every now and again we need to put a roadblock in place. And what we do when we do various different techniques is we just send the brain off down a different pathway and encourage it to build new neural pathways, new transmitters, and it will go off into a different place. Now, quite often people will be coming down and they will try a technique and they'll feel it won't perhaps work, or they won't persist with it. Now, we get power in repetition. So as we travel down that path, and that roadblock sends us into a different direction by using any one of many different skills that we can learn to manage anxiety and mood and things like that in a different way, then we can make really powerful changes. So what I wanted to talk about today, and I have mentioned it in previous videos, but I would just like to talk a little bit more in depth, is about what little techniques, simple little techniques you can do to help you feel better in that moment. And what this is doing is it is putting in that roadblock, and it is sending new pathway, and it's allowing the brain to go in different directions. So you're saying stop to that normal pattern. So the first technique that I would like to show you is bilateral stimulation, and all it is passing something, an object, from one hand to another. It doesn't have to be a ball, it can be a pen, could be nothing, could be the air, doesn't really matter. But I have a ball, that's my prop. So all we do is focus in on the anxiety. If the anxiety is present, tune into it and just really notice. And as you do, just start passing the object from side to side. And just really focus on what you're doing there. And the reason that this works is because, very cleverly, anxiety works on one hemisphere of the brain. But by doing this, you're actually activating both hemispheres of the brain. So the anxiety can't coexist, and it will naturally come down. So you're dispersing the blood in your brain as it's having to go to different areas. So that's one very simple little technique. The next technique that I would like to teach you is called peripheral vision. Again, a very, very simple technique, and it is something you can use for cravings, you can use it for anxiety, you can use it for any kind of emotional state. If you are overthinking, ruminating about goodness knows what, just bring yourself in the moment, just focus your attention on one spot, wherever in the room that may be. If you are walking, it could be the person that's standing in front of you, walking ahead. It could be something that you can see in the distance. But whatever that is, just focus on that one point. And just slowly take in your awareness from that particular one point. And just noticing softly what's going on in the periphery of your vision. And just bringing that periphery as far back as you can see it. Just expanding that field of vision until you can almost see what's going on behind you. And what you will notice is, whilst doing that, the internal chatter quietens. And of course, bring your awareness back to the front again. But for that period of time, you are providing that roadblock away from that normal pattern of behaviour, and you're teaching your brain to make new neural pathways, new connections that don't run in that same manner as they always did. So that is a really powerful technique to use as often as needed. And the more we get used to doing these techniques, they can be used at any time, any place, anywhere. People don't really need to know what you're doing when and why. Just as when you're sitting at a desk and you're passing a pen from one hand to the other. No one needs to know why you're doing that. You could even be sitting under your desk. No one might even know that you're moving your hands. Who knows? So there's two really clever techniques, both of which are within kind of science. They come from science. The third technique I want to tell you is to do with heart breathing. Now, I don't know if anybody has ever looked into this, but heart rate variability is one of the biggest predictors of death and mortality. When it comes to heart coherence, again, this is kind of a factor. The heart has one of the biggest emitters of electrical energy, and it is very intuitive. And this is evidence that has kind of been found. If you would like to find out more, look at the Heart Math Institute, and there's some amazing studies there and some amazing techniques that you can learn. So, heart breathing or heart healing, putting your hands in the heart healing position. You can close your eyes if you wish. And just, for a moment, just breathe in through your heart. And just imagine, as you breathe in and out, the energy coming up through your heart. Just really focus. You can imagine it as a colour, or indeed you can just imagine and just breathe, but just allowing your hands and your heart to just breathe through your body. And bringing it back to the here and now. And just now, just take a deep breath in. And just breathe out, but over twice the length of time. Breathing out for longer engages the parasympathetic, or the rest and recovery part of the body. Very powerful. And just grab your wrist and just anchor in any feeling that you may have of relaxation, and you will notice it. And certainly your heart, if you were wired up to a machine or something like that, then I'm sure it would show a difference. So that's another little technique, which again not only is good for any kind of emotional difficulties, but ultimately that is something, when you do look into the evidence from the Heart Math Institute and heart rate variability, that is something that's incredibly good for our health. The other thing that's worth saying about is if anyone has looked into polyvagal theory, the vagus nerve, so that's kind of linked. So by doing an exercise like that will have a very positive effect on the vagus nerve, which is the nerve that sends a signal from the brain all the way down through the body into the gut, through the heart, through all of the different organs. So it's kind of like a biofeedback loop, and that nerve is a very powerful nerve, and again predictor of health, because it kind of runs the parasympathetic and the sympathetic part of the nervous system, and it helps to govern that. So another little technique I was going to say that goes with that is when we drop our jaw, we might look a bit strange when we do this. But what we're doing there, again, we're engaging the vagus nerve, so we are providing that calming, and it will activate the parasympathetic rest and recovery part of the body. Another simple technique is what we're going to do is anchor your tongue on the top of your mouth. Now, by doing that, it works in a couple of different ways. First of all, it is linked directly to one of the meridians, and by anchoring your tongue to the top of your mouth, it has a very positive way of kind of connecting the meridians. I'm not 100% sure which one it is, but I can find out for you. Another powerful thing about being able to do that is when we think and when we have that negative thinking, the negative thoughts, that critical voice that tends to just go a lot of the time, by putting your tongue on the top of your mouth and just anchoring it there, it will actually also quiet that part of the negative voice. Because what happens is when we think, we make micro movements with our tongue. So by anchoring the tongue on the top of the mouth, not only are you stimulating that meridian, but also it makes it a lot harder for you to overthink. So there's another really clever little tip that you can try. Try is not a good word. We try and fail all the time. Just do it, in the words of Nike. The final technique that I would like to share with you today is again about that negative and critical voice that we all have. Now, when we have a negative and critical voice, how often is it that that negative voice is quite nasty? The tonality of it may be quite harsh. And that's quite often the quality of a negative internal voice. It can be perhaps sinister. Now just imagine how we can make changes to that negative voice. We can view it in a different way. If that negative voice is at this side of your head, imagine moving it to this side of your head. By moving it, by imagining moving it, you're changing the state and you're changing what's called the submodalities of that experience. Now equally, if we move it, we can move it to a different part of the body, but we can also change the quality of the voice. Now imagine if that voice was the voice of Minnie Mouse. how would that make you feel? How would you feel if Minnie Mouse was telling you that you were a piece of crap, horrible person that no one liked? Would it feel as bad as what it feels like when it's the voice of yourself that's only harsh, or perhaps the voice of a family member who may have been self-critical as you were growing up? But just imagine how easy it would be for you to make them changes, because you create that voice. It comes from you. So you are incredibly capable of being able to change the tone, the sound, the tonality. Is it loud, quiet? Is it a soft voice? Is it a happy helium voice? You have the ability to make them changes. It might take a little bit of practice, but hey, roadblocks, it's a good one. Whew. It's worth the practice. It's worth the practice. It's worth the practice. Because the more you do it, you are changing these patterns, the neural networks. You're going through a new pathway along the forest. You're making new changes and you're becoming a new you. And that's all habits are. Going down the same comfortable path because it's comfortable. We have to come out of our comfort zone, just like me doing this. This is not comfortable for me at all. But by doing it, I'm expanding my comfort zone, so the next time I will feel better and I'll find it easier and easier and easier. So that is all I really want to say for today. Please do message, like, look at any of my other videos. As I say, we'll continue to do some more. I'm hoping that this will have been of help for a lot of people. A lot of this information is not widely known, and it should be. I work in mental health services, and it is partly my mission to be able to educate the wider community. So please like, share, and I will see you at my next video. Thank you very much. Bye bye.